Hello, everyone. I'm Alexandra Korey, and welcome to the last day of TCBL Days 2023. The idea behind today's roundtable comes from a question that I think a lot of us are asking. Is it possible for what we call fashion to actually ever be sustainable? Personally, I have trouble seeing it. Within the current economic construct, on the heels of Black Friday, full of overproduction and overconsumption. On the other hand, there's greater awareness, there's action that might give us some hope. There's a new consumer mentality, seeking to reduce consumption, new technologies enabling less polluting production techniques, as well as better post-consumer recycling. And of course, there's greater awareness. There's a sense of responsibility and action on the part of at least some brands when it comes to sustainability. So this is the last day of this year's TCBL Days, the annual event from the TCBL Association. The first two sessions were dedicated to alternative education and to biotextiles. Today, we have asked a selection of TCBL members to the table who are chosen to loosely represent or be able to talk about the fields of luxury fashion, fast fashion, ethical manufacturing and consumer awareness groups, and sustainable fashion technologies. The goal of our conversation is to think about the roles and responsibilities of each part of this fashion system in working towards a more sustainable future. And at TCBL, we refer to ingredients for sustainability as part of an intricate recipe that hopefully leads to a desired outcome. So can we identify inspiring good practices amongst economic models, technological solutions, and consumer campaigns? Can we think about collaborations amongst sectors that could help speed up this ecological transition? I'm Alexandra Korey. I'm the Communications Officer at TCBL Association. And with our agency in Italy, Flood, as well as with Cédric TCBL, I manage the communication of European Union funded projects in the field of textile and clothing sustainability. I would say I am a conscious consumer. I am not in any way an expert in this field. Conversely, let's meet our experts, our speakers, who I will now call up one by one. And I will be asking you to please present yourself in a few words, and then tell us one practice that either you've implemented or that someone that you respect or you've seen has implemented to make the textile and clothing sector really sustainable. And we'll start with Cédric Dauch, who I will now bring up on the screen. There you are. Welcome, Cédric. We'll have you turn off your microphone and please introduce yourself, or turn on your microphone.
I'm there, sorry. Very cool to be with you this morning. Thank you, Alexandra. Right, big subject about exemplarity and sustainability. To introduce myself, I'm a luxury worker. I worked 10 years for retail at Printemps in France, big department store. And from a couple of years now, I'm working for several companies in luxury and beauty. And I'm also marketing and communication consultant for several businesses. It's a side activity.
And have you implemented one sustainability action in this field, or have you seen something really interesting happening in the luxury industry that you'd like to point out today?
Yes. I saw very good activity led by the company Weijl, French actor. They simply decided to work in terms of sustainability, starting from the product, and they decided to place this subject at the heart of the mission, because the person in charge of the sustainability is the person who design and operate all the sourcing for the company. And it was absolutely, in terms of exemplarity, really stunning. The thing is, how could it be more efficient? Because when you only talk about sustainability, you may lose some customer. So my point is, okay, you try to be in a good way to get a production as clean as we can, but at the same time, you need to explain. But it's not enough, because desirability may also stand the hurt of the business. That's the point.
That's a really interesting point. So you're saying that essentially sustainability should be there at the base, but not necessarily at the forefront. Not everybody has to talk about it.
Yeah, they're at that stage. They know how to produce. They try to be as good as they could be, but on the same level, they also need to create some other narrative to explain that it's good, but that could be also a match with the fact that you have a real desire when you want to buy something.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting. So I'm going to call up our next speaker, Paola Bertola. Here you go. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. So I'm Paola Bertola, a professor at the School of Design at Politecnico di Milano, where I also lead a research lab, which is called Fashion in Process. And in fact, our focus is exactly on processes more than final products, as we believe that all transformation should start from the way you do things and not from the things themselves. So that's the approach. And as a second point, in my experience, what I can say in terms of emerging good practices coming from a research context, I can really say that in the last 5 years, with an increase in the last 3, there's really a growing demand of research in the sustainability field, which is coming to us with an intensity that we never saw before. And this demand of research and innovation related to sustainability comes from really different actors right now. So certain luxury industries are really approaching the topic in a more convinced way now. And for example, we had Cartier as one of our partner in projects related to that, as well as the watch and jewelry initiative, but also from actors that are already, I would say, sustainability native, but that are searching for ways of scaling up their approaches from being niche initiative in the industry to be more consistent and impactful in terms of also numbers and approaches. So that's my experience at the moment.
That sounds very positive indeed. So there's hope. I'm going to bring up on our stage Eleni Mavrogeni. Hello.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Eleni. I am from Fashion Revolution Greece, an activist movement on sustainable fashion, and from Soffa, the social fashion factory. I'm here to introduce a new practice. We have also been asking this question for a long time. Can we have a sustainable brand that can be a good practice? Is this a reality to have a zero waste practice brand? So what we came up with is our own high-end brand, which is called Wear Your Origins. And what we do there is try to incorporate not only environmental sustainability, but also cultural and ethical sustainability, which is also a part to consider. And so we have created a high-end brand which also incorporates our values and tries to penetrate the fashion industry in a different way. And so what we do is we pair up women that come from vulnerable backgrounds, so women that have experienced human trafficking, violence, or social exclusion, and we pair them up with a fashion designer in order to train them on how to create sustainable garments. and give them the opportunity to inspire a collection through their own experiences, either their own cultural experiences or their own personal story. Yeah, so this is in short what we do. We can go more into that later.
Okay, well, it sounds absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Let's bring up David Alonso. Here you are. Hello, David. David?
Hello, good morning. I'm David Alonso, and I have a chemical background. I've been working in the chemical and pharmaceutical industries, and for the last 12 years, I'm working in the textile industry in sustainability and innovation, and for the last 2 years in Weijl. Right now, we are participating in an Horizon Europe project called T Extended, along with other 19 partners, research centers, universities, and all other industrial partners, to develop a blueprint for the optimized cycling for different textile flows. It is very important for us to be in touch with the innovation and research that is happening in research centers and universities, because it's our way to get insights and to get the knowledge on what is happening regarding the new technologies to move the business to a more circular business. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So essentially, you're saying that your good practice at this time that you're presenting is the participation in this project, yes, and the idea of collaboration?
Yes, I mean, we have others, but I wanted to highlight this one because it's a good example of how a company can collaborate with the research and innovation that is happening.
Yeah. Well, I think that our next guest, Pauline Guesné, may be just the kind of person you want to collaborate with. What do we think?
Hello. Can you hear me?
We do. We can. Tell us about your amazing technology.
Yes, so we have developed a post-consumer recycling technology, and we are in the process of industrializing it. The name is Refact, and it allows us to recycle multicolored textile with accessories, and we can take a different composition. So we can take a mix of cellulosic material, polyester, and pretty much whatever else, as long as it's a minority, whether it's elastin, silk, wool, it doesn't matter. But what we value is the cellulosic materials like cotton, hemp, viscose, and also the PET from the polyester.
I'm really excited about this technology, and I keep telling everyone, now you can recycle not just cotton alone or wool alone. So we're very much looking forward to seeing that on a big scale, and that will be a question later on. Do you have some other sort of best practice that you want to tell us about, something that either you've brought ahead or that you've seen happen around you that you think is interesting that you want to bring to the table?
Honestly, in terms of eco-conception, I think that the fact that we're trying to make more simple garments to help recycle is obviously a good idea. And I think for us, it's very much about, the first speaker said, it's also about like the desirability of the product. And our fiber is really like normal viscose, the fiber we recreate with the cellulose. It's the same length, same resistance, same touch and feel, everything. So I think we can do some eco-conception without altering the desirability of the product, and that's what we're trying to do.
Very interesting. Well, I don't want to leave Amber Bishop out of the table here, so I'm going to bring you on. Hello, Amber.
Sorry, Sorry, I just remuted myself. Hi, my name is Amber Bishop Kainu. I live in Finland. I work for a company that creates natural dyes from plant-based sources, and it's on an industrial scale. So we are beyond the lab scale. We've moved higher. I think that's the significant impact, is that the basically all of the clothing you're wearing right now has synthetic dyes in them, which is not biodegradable. Like, so if you're using wool or cotton, 100% cotton, that is biodegradable. But the synthetic dye that sits on top of the fibers is not biodegradable. The dyes that we create are from right now mainly plant-based dyes, and that is naturally biodegradable.
So can your natural dyes dye any fabric? Pauline, does your fabric, for example, accept a natural dye like the one that Amber's company makes?
Well, I haven't tried Amber's specifically, but we can dye the obviously we can dye the viscose like any other viscose, so we would have to try.
Yeah, the natural dyes work with all protein fibers and all cellulose fibers. We've also successfully dyed post-consumer waste cotton. I think the highest percentage was a 75% post-consumer waste cotton with a 35% post-consumer waste polyester that was dyed successfully.
So some interesting experiments happening, and like I said today, what we would love to do is see if there are collaborations that might be able to form here, or that we can imagine could happen between or amongst these different sectors. So maybe we can imagine a collection of blue shirts coming out of Refact soon. Normally, I guess it would be a good practice in this kind of situation to start with some small questions. So instead, I'm going to start with a bigger one, maybe the biggest. Can we talk about degrowth? You know, there's this big question, there's a lot of finger pointing happening about who's to blame for this mess that we're in. And, you know, the fact is that most business models require continued increase in production for economic growth. So brands push consumers to consume more. Is degrowth happening? I have heard it is. Who should lead the way? Should they be? Are they doing it? And what are the economic and social impacts that that is going to have? Small question just to start us off. Anyone want to take a hack at it?
Well, I can break the ice. So I remember when I was at school, and it's long ago, but yeah, it was there, the debate about growth. Actually, it started in the 50s of the last century with this awareness of the fact that growth has limits. So that was discovered, and here we are. Well, we should always remember that we need to understand and to teach the difference between growth and development, which are two very different things. So not to grow or to stop the growth doesn't mean not to develop into different ways, into different cultures, into different paradigms. So I guess this is the perspective we should finally embrace, understanding that for what also nature teaches us, continuous growth is something that finally brings to death. So that is something that we can learn from all the different sources of common sense. So given that, we need really to understand how to still continue develop without continuing growing, which is something that will finally kill us as a species, because also scientific studies say that we're not actually in the risk of killing nature, but we are in the risk of killing ourselves as species, because nature has already demonstrated us that can adapt to many different things. So I think that this is something that is really needed as awareness, and of course caring of the planets, and understanding that we cannot grow and we are part of the planet. So we also need to remember that we are part of a system. We are part of something that we need to look without having ourselves at the very center, but considering that everything is at the same within the same system and all interconnected. So my answer is that the growth it's not only possible, but it's needed as something that is really the only way to go. So how can we develop without continuing growing? This is the proper question.
David, if you don't mind my pointing a finger in your general direction, what about the fast fashion industry and the issue of degrowth? How is it perceived?
Well, I think there is a sentence that explains it very clear that I read in a Greenpeace report that say that brands need to move from producers to service providers. No? And this is a way that you can see nowadays that growth do not need to be directly related to producing more items. And you can see some initiatives in the market like repairing services, selling the second-hand clothes in your own portal to empower the brand, renting services, and so on. So for sure, I think the industry needs the help as well of the policymakers. No, you were mentioning who is responsible. I think we are all responsible as consumers. Companies are responsible to set up this business model, to make more, to obtain more profit from it, and policymakers as well to allow, a framework where everyone can behave this way. No, I think none of us is free here. But I think it's possible to decouple, and I think is the goal in the next years to decouple more production with economical growth. And as Paola is saying, the development. I think the industry needs to change in this way and find another business models more based on services and all these things. Yeah.
Anyone else with thoughts on that? I thought the policy issue is also very interesting. And I think almost all of us here work in EU projects where we have the opportunity of doing research and of bringing policies back to EU policymakers. And so all of what we're doing does, I think, reach those ears and hopefully is leading to the creation of useful, interesting policies. We're also seeing some things happening at certain country levels or regional levels. The fact that much touted France has now a bonus that you can use to repair your clothes. If I'm correct, Cédric, I read that on Instagram because I get a lot of news from there. Super interesting. So actually, I'm going to turn over to the issue of luxury fashion. One thing that Paola mentioned is that you have a lot of clients coming from the luxury industry interested in making their work more sustainable. And so either for you or for Cédric, I was wondering why they're interested in going in this direction. Like, what is their thought process? Is it coming from consumer pressure? Is it coming from a sense of responsibility? What is motivating them really to move in this direction?
Right. There is a tension in this luxury market because on the one hand, you have European regulation and laws that could drive the business and maybe help industries to think in a different way. So most of luxury industries try to get a better production and think about eco-conception. But the reality is that at that stage, when you look at consumers, and I don't want to point any country, but most of the consumers in this luxury sphere, they don't really care about sustainability when they think about luxury products. So that's the tension. When you're in Italy, in France, or in the UK, or in European, or even the US, for sure, we try to think the product, we try to think the ecosystem as clean as we can. But at the end of the day, and I'm really sorry to say that, we have another interpretation of the business when we look at consumers. Sorry, but when you ask someone in Korea, in China, or in South Africa, I'm not sure that the first thing they have in mind is how it is produced, but they look for the desirability of the product. So from my point of view, we definitely need to change the way we go on the market and the narrative we want to share with the consumer. I mean, desirability for sure is quite central, but we can be inspired by a lot of stuff in the world to make luxury product desirable. And it's not only a question about ingredients, about how you, excuse me, about how you produce, but it's the new world you want to share with your customers. Because desirability could be in nature, could be in the know-how, could be in the way you produce when you talk with workers and people from craftsmanship, for instance. There's a large, very wide palette of narrative. And at that stage, from a communication and marketing perspective, it's like most of luxury industries, they don't know how they can move from this desirability construction that belongs to decades to the future, and to be able to investigate new proposition about desirability related on people, related on biodiversity, related on new narratives. For me, that's quite central.
Paola, did you want to?
Yes, I didn't want to steal
No,
all the time. Well, I think that Cédric pointed out a very important critical aspect, which is that currently there's a very large portion of luxury market that is located in countries that actually are not such advanced in terms of conceiving sustainability as a transition that is really necessary right now. I also have to say there's an additional, I would say, paradox that within those countries, in many of them, those luxury markets are really niche of those of the population of those countries, which are the same countries where fashion industry in general, luxury in part, but it's not the key problem for that. But anyway, those are the countries where fashion industry is actually disseminated the supply chains and produced the majority of impacts that now we are suffering. So the paradoxes are so many within the industry that really approaching them through new visions is not so easy, and approaching them in a systemic way is not so easy. Well, what can we do in that direction? As you said, Alexandra, why are luxury industries anyway coming asking for having ideas, innovations, and research to go to this direction? I think that we can imagine that at a certain point, it's not the first time in the history of humankind, there are some communities that are taking the responsibility for changes that are not driven by short-term desires, but by long-term goals. This happened already in other moment of humanities. So maybe that in this moment, I hope so, there's a system of communities that is, to me, right now more located in Europe than in other places, that is trying to take these responsibilities. Also looking back to actually the impact that we've been producing ourselves. So I hope that there's this awareness growing now. And there's an idea of business that is changing to our understanding that entrepreneurship is also a social act. So it's something that produces impacts in society, that is monetary impacts, but many other impacts, societal, cultural impacts. So what we can do is to grow an entrepreneurial system, an economic system, a cultural system that is embracing this long-term perspective, as we are responsible for a system that is much larger than the little one of a single business or a single market. This is the only way to look at the situation. Certainly in the medium long term, it can happen that also in terms of behavioral change, those communities that right now don't care about sustainability will understand it, but at the moment we need to know that this won't happen, but maybe we can go that direction anyway. And as for the luxury industry, I think that there is really the know-how, the capacity of creating desirable products while finding other ways to do that. And maybe that some people will understand it, some others will buy them because they are desirable and they are also sustainable, hopefully. So I don't know if that's a point that we can share.
I think luxury businesses have a big responsibility because they want to share a model, a storytelling, and a lifestyle. As soon as you decide to build your lifestyle on consumption and on singularity, and that you are not able to translate and to explain that biodiversity, nature can be inspiring, you have a big responsibility for this. So you need to propose another model.
That is kind of where I was thinking of going. I mean, in that I thought to myself, okay, who can lead this transformation? Who has the money to do it? One would think that the luxury industry should take the lead on this, and that then from there it might trickle down. For example, Balenciaga recently managed to make outfits that look like plastic bags, but they're not plastic bags, out of biotextiles. So they're doing what they always did before, but they're managing to do it with experimental materials. And maybe that gives the idea to other parts of the industry that we can experiment with biotextiles. But what I seem to be hearing that's coming out of especially your suggestion, Cédric, that maybe the luxury industry can't really benefit from communicating and say we're so sustainable. Maybe the impetus is actually coming from other parts of it. So maybe we're looking more at something small and local. One of the things that came out of our first TCBL Days meeting this year, 2 weeks ago, is we saw some student presentations from UAL and from Fab Academy, some of which were connected to the HereWear project, which works on local, sustainable, bio-based textiles. So in the local production, here I'm thinking also of the kind of production that Eleni has had experience with there in Greece. When you're working on a local level, you are almost always working in some way in a sustainable manner, in that it's small, it impacts your community directly, and it can speak about that community and impact that economy.
I think you're true. There's a lot of solutions, and sorry to mention this, but when we look at the margin for luxury businesses, for sure, it can come from luxury businesses. Money I'm sorry to say this, but money is not a problem for luxury businesses. They need to drive the market. They have money to pay for everything on every level, on communication, on production, on resources, and how they can produce and how they can execute their businesses in a green way. They have money to do this. It's not a
And
problem.
on that note, we were really disappointed because we are obviously raising funds to industrialize our solution, and we have met a very cold. How can I say that in a diplomatic way? But we haven't met the most enthusiasm with luxury brands. They are claiming that they want to advance in sustainability, but they were really interested in us for getting rid of their unsold items rather than really supporting the production of recycled fibers. And so far, not a single one of all the luxury brands we've been meeting with has shown interest for more than one meeting, whereas a lot of investors and other brands that are more considered fast fashion are trying to help us, whether by seeing if they can invest or signing letters of support or collaborating with us to make tests with our fibers, none of which has been done by the luxury market.
For me, there are several layers on this. and Pauline, I think I totally understand what you say. But from an organization perspective, first of all, when you work with studios, you need to reinforce the link we have and the link you have with the designers, and to be able to propose more solutions. And at that stage, in the way that the businesses are organized today, when an artistic director wants something pink or blue with cotton, people are still look for cotton, pink and blue, and no other solution. Most of the time, they don't have a lot of time to make new proposition. So we have a question of organization, and we also have question about resources that are really relevant to create in a new way.
Okay, so may I actually tell you what happened? We were brought by the team of one of the brands with the design team on board. By the way, our fiber, as I mentioned, is just like virgin fiber, and we can do absolutely any color and any density, any weight, whatever. It doesn't matter. So we were brought by the brand, including the designer team and the RSE in French we say, so the sustainable team. So it was like designers and sustainable team bringing us to headquarters to meet with the person in charge for. It was a rather large group with several brands, that particular example. So we were brought to headquarters with the people in charge of sustainability for headquarters and in charge of investment. And though the brand, very famous, was really enthusiastic, nothing happened at headquarters. So it's not, I don't think it's a matter of the designer decides and designer don't want recycled material. They do. There's someone else more up the hierarchy scale who's not that motivated about sustainability, at least not for creating sustainable fibers, but rather than getting rid of their waste, that they see the regulation is pinning as a problem, and especially now that you can't destroy unsold inventory.
No, you get me wrong. Sorry if I'm not correct when I express myself. What I want to say is not a question about artistic direction, that I don't want to work with new fibers or that. No, I'm talking about the organization and the way they need to produce 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 collections. And people working with the studio, they don't have, to be honest, I see this every day at home. And I see the way they work, and they are running, and they don't have enough time to think what they could provide to the studio. So for me, the first question in that kind of organization is, what is really existing on the market that could be relevant for my company. And I'm pretty sure they don't have time to focus on this and to be completely well informed about those new solutions. And I'm not saying that most of artistic directors don't want to work on change their mind, but it's a problem of organization and timing and time to market and the number of collection they need to produce in 1 year, for instance.
Honestly, I think you underestimate them, because almost all of them, all the big French name, we've met them on fairs like Première Vision. And so we've met either the designer team, obviously not the designer, or the sustainability team.
Yes, sorry.
And it really did block at a higher level, and they were really doing their job of trying to source new materials, and the problem we had was with headquarters and not with those teams.
So the problem is
Well-
the margin. So where is it?
No, the problem is, so our solution need industrializing, and so for that you need two things: either you need money, or you need people to start co-developing with you, right? And once the designer team or the RSE team were presenting at their headquarters, because they don't have the power to sign with us, right? That's where the problem happened. During the meetings, all of them were really keen on talking about how they're going to get rid of their unsold inventory and their production waste, but they were absolutely not willing to collaborate on the production of the fibers or investing in the production. Their only concern was, how do I get rid of my waste now that I can't destroy my unsold inventory? So for me, it is really like the decision has to come from the owners of those brands. And for now, it's not their main focus. They could, like the brands, they do try to make an impact, but if they are not supported by their hierarchy, nothing's going to happen.
For sure.
Well,
Sorry.
I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I think, Pauline, that you've pointed out, I would say, a DNA aspect of that industry as it's been evolving over time. So this is a type of industry that nowadays at brand level, so the one you've tackled, actually invest less than the 1% in real research and innovation. So they do a lot of research in terms of semantic, cultural, and stylistics aspects, but do not invest less than 1%. These are the data, unfortunately. And all the costs about research and also the costs in terms of innovation are now in the supply chain, which has been reorganized throughout the last 10 years, but not enough for understanding that cases as yours should be embedded in the system more formally. So the problem is that the fabric and the materials supply chain is now really supporting all the costs of the transition. And actually, I'm sorry to say that, because I should embed the luxury industry system, but at brand level, actually, the problems that they are tackling are the one that you are saying, because those problems are internally in the business model, while the other problems are left to the supply chain. Now the situation, I have to say, is slowly changing, because also the supply chain actors are taking somehow a little bit more power in terms of negotiation. But certainly what you said is actually what is unfortunately still happening.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't blame those brands in terms of they are far away from the fibers, like the fiber, then the yarn, then the fabric, then manufacturing the garment, and then that's them putting them on the market. So I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, we're saying that the luxury industry has the money and is going to act, and I'm saying not yet. And I completely agree with you, Paola, that right now it's the supply chain acting. And surprisingly, some fast fashion brands, or like lower priced brands that are panicking about new regulations coming with recycled material that they're going to need to integrate to their collection, and because they're doing big volumes and they don't have that much margin, they are trying to find solutions. But again, not blaming the luxury brands, just saying my experience talking with them.
I am going to jump in because I saw Amber nodding. I'm interested to know if Natural Indigo is encountering similar kind of blocks in terms of uptake, or
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yes, very much so. And I agree completely with the things that Pauline has suggested. And everybody wants to talk about sustainability, but when you put your feet to the pavement, it's a very different story. But also, you have to, at least I think about it as like, the fashion industry has been doing business in a certain way for a certain amount of time. And what Pauline and I and many other businesses are trying to do is, like, we've been basically forced to think outside the box to find solutions. Whereas it's uncomfortable to be in that position. Like, you really have to be incredibly creative and look for solutions where there may not be something, but also to go back to your failures and look at, like, okay, why did that not work and what can we do? If you think about in a sustainability space, so you have to exclude certain things that you would think you are working with. But I do generally think that and maybe it's a consumer piece that can push the fashion industry as a whole, not just luxury brands or fast fashion, is like it impacts the entire world. So, like, if you're only looking for one type of solution, you leave all of the other solutions out.
That consumer point is one that I want to take up immediately. But I'm going to put it aside for just a second, and that's going to go towards you, Eleni. But we have a question from our YouTube channels. Comes from Jesse, who's our great boss, our founder at the TCBL Association. Has anyone done an analysis of organizational structures and cultures and their resistance to change? Because it sounds like this not having time to think thing is done on purpose. You can use it as an excuse. When you were speaking, Cédric, Pauline, I was thinking about how it's interesting that there's these companies, they go to the trouble of having a whole sustainability area, a leader, a team, people like David here. How easy is it to have your ideas and then make sure that they are heard by the people above you? Let's say in general, not necessarily only in your company, but the experience of people like you. How do they communicate to the people above, and how do they make sure that that change follows through beyond?
Well, from my point of view, I work in advertising, marketing, and communication, so I could be the bad guy of the audience. What I was sharing a couple of minutes ago is my personal living. My husband works in a brand for caring, so I will not say which company. But to be honest with you, when I see him working, he has no time to go to several congress or salon to see how he can work in another way, because of production problems, because of sourcing, because of quality, because of staffing, because of organization. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of CSR structure, and maybe at the headquarters, they try to think and they try to propose new solution. But I'm pretty sure that on the other side, Pauline, you're absolutely right. They're not really exploring very deeply how to change. And this tension and this creation, with these two aspects of the problem, we are all going the wall. It's a double aspect for me.
I think for the luxury industry, they are not in the focus, right? I think everyone is blaming fast fashion. So what they should do something if for now, let's say, it's not affecting them. I think all the companies have a resistance to change. If when you are a business and let's say the business is working or have been working for the last 20, 30 years, you tend to replicate the same model to say, okay, this is working. No, my clients want this. So I think that's one of the problems of the industry that is divided. It's like I said before, no, that we need to see an alignment between the policymakers, industry, and customers. But sometimes even the European Union is making campaigns saying, okay, it's the fast fashion. Okay, so we put the focus in the fast fashion. And when Pauline is saying that, yes, there are fast fashions willing to invest and willing to develop new articles and so on, of course, because the focus is there. And they need to move, fast fashion need to move to say, okay, it seems that we are the problem, so we need to see how to solve this problem and how to change what we are doing, right?
So perhaps things are going to come more from fast fashion. And it's interesting that if the luxury industry might be reluctant to communicate because they're maybe afraid of looking, I don't know, too geeky or not being interesting to those aspirational clients, the fast fashion industry has had a spotlight pointed on it by people like Fashion Revolution and other consumer groups. And so they are sort of trying to lead the way. Maybe they're having trouble, maybe they're encountering this block somewhere between sort of the higher part and the lower part. But meanwhile, they're taking some small actions. So is that the stuff that we see that's happening, that gets communicated by these fast fashion companies, is it greenwashing? Like, is it really just greenwashing when they say we're doing recycling, we're giving you a free repair kit for doing a recycled collection? Or is it really part of a bigger plan that really is going to be something big and amazing?
Well, sorry, is this a question for David?
It is a big question for everybody. You can start, David can take it up.
Of course. So for me, the question is a bit simplistic in a way because it's a more complex issue. Meaning that, of course, it is a step to take. Considering packaging, for example, it is one step of the supply chain, and it's an important one, and it should be considered if even fast fashion brands are taking the step to solve this. But of course, this is only one step of the supply chain, which is huge, and it is not enough. And changing fabrics is also maybe not enough. It has to be more of a holistic approach. And regarding also to Jesse's question, of course, we are resistant to change, and people are bombarded with information and with brands the whole time. Consumers are really confused about what to buy, what not to buy, where to put their focus on when buying something. And it is just a very confusing time for all of us. But the thing is that, working class consumers are more adapting to sustainability now because they are realizing that when I buy from a fast fashion brand and I have a t-shirt that is 20 euros, I realize that someone in the supply chain is not being paid enough. And that is why my t-shirt is costing 20 euros. And I think that is why they are more adaptive to the whole system and realizing what is going on. And now the problem for the luxury brands is that as you have all said before, it is not really desirable to the consumer. The luxury consumer is not really interested in sustainability or doesn't really understand it or is not really focused on that part. So the question here is, how can I make luxury fashion more desirable? And I think that goes back to providing more services, and we have to develop into a more service-based fashion industry. And just bring back luxury fashion and what it used to be back in the day, which is a whole experience. And I think this is more important also for consumers because they're having this consumer rush, meaning that they want to buy something and the experience of it only lasts for 10 minutes, which is increasing their dopamine levels. And then this goes down again. And by the time the item has come into their hands, they have already lost interest. And for luxury fashion, that means going into a luxury store, having a whole experience of selecting the fabric, selecting the color, being able to talk with the designer, get to know, educate themselves on the fabrics, or having tailor-made clothes that just are for them and creating a unique experience around the garment. And I think this is the most important thing and something that the luxury industry can develop into.
David, your take on the question?
Yes, greenwashing is a very tricky topic, right? Because of course there are some things that you can see clearly that is greenwashing when you are making a statement that a garment is sustainable or something. You always need to have something behind to sustain, what you are mentioning. And on the other hand, since you are being pushed to be more sustainable or to use to go there and to change your business model, you try to say, okay, this is what I am doing. I think that the big problem here is that, yes, now we have the Green Claims Directive that was released in March 2023 in Europe. I think we all have big expectations, to understand what is really greenwashing and what is not. And the goal is not for us. The goal is for the customer to understand when they go to buy something, to have a clear understanding what is behind that. It's not only that you as a brand know how to communicate or what you can say, what you cannot, but for the client who is buying your garments, that they understand, okay, this garment was done under these conditions, whatever they were. But yeah, we need the help of policymakers to define what really is needed for the customers or for everyone.
So perhaps a move towards speaking labels that give all the information about products, which is something that various people are working on, including some TCBL members and some projects, would be interesting. It sounds like the consumers are a big part of this equation, at least those in those countries that are not necessarily the big consumers of the luxury products. They certainly have the power to drive change from the bottom up. And I think it would be useful, advantageous to brands to collaborate with global advocacy groups like Fashion Revolution, like Remake, the OR Foundation, for example, which is calling for brands to publish their production volumes as a part of a campaign to reduce waste colonialism. Are there any updates, Eleni, from Fashion Revolution in terms of what campaigns you're working on now and how things are going?
Of course, we're always working with our campaigns, which are Who Made My Clothes and What's in My Clothes, regarding sustainability and ethical effects of the fashion industry. And I think now consumers are, again, as I said, more they're looking more into the fashion industry and realizing what the problem is, and that is why we see more visibility around the topic. Now, for example, we have seen the strikes happening in Bangladesh from people in the fashion workers that are trying to be paid. And this is a question that has been raised again and again. But as you said, greenwashing will not be a reality in the next years now that the digital passport is in place, because the fashion industry has to be traceable now. They have to give details about their whole supply chain. They have to have a digital passport, which you can scan, for example, on your tag. And then they have to give information on where the fabric was produced and how it came into your hands. So this is a very valuable step, because that means that fast fashion brands cannot actually just throw their garments into landfills, because if they do that, they will be fined. And I think this is a very important step for the fashion industry to change, and consumers are also really interested in that, and a lot of fast fashion brands have incorporated that step. And now regarding consumers, of course, we have seen as an activist movement that, again, they are very much focused on rental schemes and also very much focused on thrift shopping, at least in some of the countries, but in Europe, this is also really trend right now.
Anyone want to comment on anything from there?
Well, if I may, I have. Sorry, Amber, go ahead.
No, go on ahead.
I have two comments about the perspective of consumers that also connect to something that everyone spoke about in terms of luxury and emerging markets first. Certainly there's, as Eleni said, in emerging markets, the approach to luxury is driven by consumerism, which originally was not the typical approach to luxury fashion as it was created. As Eleni was saying, luxury was connected to the idea of caring, of long-lasting, of unique experience. There are customers that right now approach luxury with as they approach fast fashion, so buying as much as they buy fast fashion, and with this speed date approach. So certainly there's this problem, and luxury actually took advantage about this approach because they sell more, of course. So certainly there's a problem of behavioral change that we really need to be aware, because this way with this overconsumption is even for mental health reason not sustainable at all. So we all experienced that. Also, when you eat too much, then you don't feel well. So there's a general change that we need to imagine for everyone that has to do with behavioral change, and certainly movement as fashion revolution can help. My second comments relates to their approach that I observed, and we also, for example, did an interesting experiment with Fashion Revolution Italian about this. That for the reason that actually we've been scared about climate change and then what happened with the pandemic and so on and so forth, we are acting right now in terms of supporting behavioral change on feelings like guiltness, fear, that actually are not positive feelings. So of course, everyone now as consumer, anytime that we buy something, we feel somehow guilty if it's not completely sustainable or belongs to a sustainable business, and so on and so forth. So I think that any movement that is based on fear, on this type of feelings, in the long term really doesn't work. So these are important feelings because they protect us from crisis and from crashing into walls, but then we need to find other ways of communicating and engaging people. And I think that we are creative enough for imagining also movements that can rely on desire, amusement, and engaging people for the good, not for the bad. So I think that this shift it's important right now. So motivating ourselves using and relying on positive sentiments and visions, because negative sentiments, again, for mental health, they're not good. We don't feel good then. So that's a challenge for everyone. How can we embrace this transition also by being by finding way of communicating and interacting and linking each other in a better way.
Yeah, and to add on this, I think this is a two-way relationship between the consumer and the brand. They both have to inspire the other. And the fashion brand also has to inspire the consumer on, just not feeding them the whole time with micro trends, which is the basic whole topic right now. How do we get off of the micro trends and just, provide people with clothes that are just durable and timeless? And this is a question I would have for my fellow here speakers that are in the fashion industry. What do you think about micro trends, or especially from David? Is this something that the brands want to continue to have?
When you are in a brand, when you are in a company, the company has a competence in the market, and finally you are playing according to the rules that you have in the market to be competitive and to try to reach your clients and to try to do the best in your business. I always say, I said before that the rules, the framework regulating this overconsumption that is happening in the last year already, since maybe 30 years ago, where we are in this system, which is a capitalism, to consume, to buy, and to use, and if you don't like it, it's cheaper to buy another one than to repair it or to do something with it. So we all have big expectations, honestly, in the new European Commission regulations, because I think it's going to change the rules of the game. I am pretty sure that some brands are going to disappear from the market, and new brands will come in the market if you are not able to adapt to that. That being said, these new rules are not only for the companies, are as well for the consumers, in the way that, okay, you need to create awareness that when a t-shirt you don't like it, you throw it away and you buy another one, or whatever it is in there. So I think it's not only industry and consumers, but policymakers as well, because if you are not able to create a common rule for everyone, where sustainability is not a competitive advantage, but is the baseline to be in business, to stay in business, it's going to be difficult, because then is when some companies may go into greenwashing, saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing the other thing. No, I think sustainability should not be a competitive advantage and should be the baseline to say, okay, these are the rules. The rules is a company. Nowadays, we know that a company needs to be profitable. You have financial audits. You need to disclose your numbers at the end of the years and so on. So at some point, sustainability needs to be at the same level, saying, hey, this is what you can do. This is what you cannot do. And everyone is going to play with the same rules. At that point, yes, then is as Cédric was saying, yes, you have the same rules. You need to create this desirability. You need to engage your clients according to what is in there.
Absolutely. I mean, and also, yes, it gives us a lot of hope, this new regulation on European level. You mentioned the responsibility of the consumer after use. So, I mean, it would be really great maybe if at Refact they're not able to collaborate with brands. I'm wondering, Pauline, if the client for you would be local governments. I mean, I would love to. Sometimes I have something that's too stained to use or to give to someone else, and so I wonder what to do with it. And I called my local waste area and I said, like, can I bring this to the ecological island where I can, recycle just about anything? No, they do not have the capacity to recycle textiles. We're here in Tuscany, where there's also textile production. Could it be that local governments would be the target for your kind of technology?
In several European countries, and especially France, Belgium, Holland, you have a very good network of textile collectors and sorters. So in a lot of the the cities, you have like huge bins where you can drop your used textile, whether it's in good condition or bad condition. And so what's in good condition, they're gonna put through reuse, and it can be sold in like vintage shops and so on. And what's in bad condition, they're gonna send to recycling according to what kind of composition or type of garment it is. And I think this really is the key, because if we talk directly to the governments or the cities or whatever level you put it, local or national, they're not going to be able to do that work for us, because we absolutely don't want to recycle garments that can still be worn, right? So these types of people are absolutely crucial, and we've started to do partnership with them. We have partnerships with 5 of them, one in the UK, several in France and Belgium. So I feel like these are the right people for us to collaborate with to collect waste.
Great. So you've used the word collaboration, and that is going to be the conclusion of our talk as it's drawing to an end. So thank you, everyone, for being here. You know, TCBL Association is really about openness, about collaboration and sharing. We also understand that that is not always an option at every level of industry for so many reasons. We also know that sustainability is extremely complex. The fastest path to success would be a coordinated and holistic approach in which everybody agrees and acts together, but that's also what we would call a utopia, and it's not going to happen. So probably each of us is going to continue to do our little bit, but we would love to see more collaboration across the board. So I say, you know, let's look at what we can do. Those of us here today, those of us watching online. I'm going to ask each of the speakers then to answer this question. Are there common denominators that you see amongst the elements of the fashion industry at today's roundtable? Who would you like to see collaborate or work with whom? I'll just go around on what I see on my screen. So starting with Cédric.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood correctly.
Sorry, yes. Difficult question. How can we collaborate? Who should we match with whom, either at this table or away from this table?
I think I'm going to get a call with Pauline for sure to introduce her to my husband company, first of all. I think I will also love to know more about Paola and the several processes that exist at that stage for my personal culture. Because I'm pretty sure we have several points to leverage, and from a global perspective, in terms of big picture, I'm pretty sure I don't understand really all the full process where we can get a better view.
That's already fantastic.
Yeah,
that's
and more time to answer your question.
You keep thinking about that. You have each other's contact. Paola?
Well, happy to start the conversation with Cédric, certainly. Well, being an academic, I think that my answer should be that we really need to start to cooperate in a larger ecosystem. So all the people at this table, to me, should be aware that we need to build a large ecosystem where we all collaborate. I think that what we forgot and we didn't learn is to act with a systemic vision. But speaking about sustainability, this is the only way to go, because any solution that really starts as a micro loop within a certain little system can be sustainable in that point of the system, but you never know the impact that will happen all over. So this is the challenge for this specific topic. So the supply chain side, as well as that we have here at the table, the behavioral side, the communication side is truly important, because I think that knowing how to to say thing, to tell thing can really make the difference in the way people think. So that is important as well. Fast fashion is hugely important because luxury is fashionable and it's glamorous and so on. But if we look at the number, the real impacts in terms of transition can be made only by fast fashion companies, because the luxury companies anyway not really such impactful comparing to others. So the movement of fashion activism as the one of fashion revolutionaries are very, very important. They have, as all the activism movement, when it's needed the change, the revolution starts from them, as well as Eleni entrepreneurs, because little entrepreneurs that create new models may be not very impactful in terms of scale, but are very impactful in terms of reference and inspiration and changing the mindset. So I want to collaborate with everybody. I hope that will be possible.
That is indeed, our thought with this table today. But I mean, if you look through TCBL Association and the various projects that we're working on, we really are trying to approach all of these aspects, because we think we have all of the actors here and that the actors just need to get together. So Pauline?
I'm gonna skip a little bit the question. Obviously, I'm really happy to talk to Cédric. Actually, I've put my email in the comments section in the chat box. I think for me, it's not so much a question of who do I want to collaborate with, because I feel like we're meeting a lot of people who really want to do something. It's more when, because a lot of the time it's just not on their priority list. And for example, I have a brand I started to talk to in July, and then they were like, oh, we absolutely have to meet in September. I was like, I'm down to coming to see you, even if it's a few hours of train away. And they were like, oh, let's do October, let's do November. And so now we've done just a little quick meeting, and we're actually going to meet with the whole team in December. So July to December, and that's what we usually are facing. So it's not so much who do I want to collaborate with, because usually when I want to collaborate with someone, I contact them and they're pretty receptive. It's more like, when do we make this a priority? And I understand, like, the market is not doing well, especially the second semester of 2023. I understand everybody's in survival mode. The textile industry is a complicated industry, and I completely understand it's not a priority. But at some point, it has to become one. So hopefully people can put that in their strategic plan and make it a priority for next year.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we lost our order of the table, so I'm just going to hand it over to Eleni.
Thank you. So I would also like to look into all of you to see possible ways of collaboration. I can see right now we at Soffa have a new project coming up. It is called Fabrics. We are collaborating with the University of Delft, the University of Erasmus, and the Athens University of Economics and Business in order to implement sustainable supply chains in big cities like Rotterdam and Athens. So I would love to collaborate with Paola as well and the research lab to see possible ways you are interested into helping us there as well. And obviously for our artistic collections, we could also collaborate with Amber as well, because we are introducing new, natural dyeing techniques from Africa, like the technique of Lepi. And it would be great to have some new, dyeing there and introduce ourselves into natural dyeing. But yeah, again, I will look into all of you, and I'm sure we can all collaborate in different ways.
David, what can you do?
So I agree with what said before, that we all need to collaborate, because the basic topic here is sustainability and how to get there. And I understand, Pauline, that it's very difficult to set up a business and to bring a technology and to find brands willing to invest in a new technology, because it's something that is not in your business, in your core business, to be an investor here. But for sure, I would like to maybe to have a meeting with you to understand at what extent or what point we can help. And with Amber as well, is very interesting. The use of natural dyes is something that we can explore. We need to take into account the performance, but I guess you have all the data. So yeah, that being said, I think we all should stay in the same and tune on to see what is happening in this topic.
Okay, well, thank you again to all of you for participating, for the follow-up that I know you will take. Our time is up. So, saluto. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.